Greetings to all of you. Today is the 31st of October 2021. It's a Sunday, Red Sunday. As communists, we always have a discussion on Sunday to discuss political issues happening in Zimbabwe, in the SADC region, and internationally. So every Sunday, we hope that we'll be able to at least discuss a topic as part of our political education. Now, today in this video, briefly, we want to talk about sanctions that were imposed on Zimbabwe 2001 by the United States of America and others. On the SADC held a summit in Tanzania, and they resolved that every 25th of October, there must be a campaign towards the removal of sanctions, or a simple and anti-sanctions campaign. These activities, seminars, are to be held around the SADC region, as was the case this 25th of October 2021. So we want to discuss the origins of these sanctions and why, as communists, we are calling for their removal, but insist that the sanctions in Zimbabwe are not the cause, or should I say, they are not the main cause of the economic crisis or economic collapse in Zimbabwe. So as we continue to have this discussion, please like this video, subscribe, and circulate. But where do these sanctions come from? Let's take a step back. We've said in other platforms, discussed the split of the former liberation movement in Zimbabwe in 1963, and our intention is not to go there. But we have demonstrated the relationship that ZANU-PF has had with the British from 1963 up to 2008. Sorry, up to 1998. What happened in 1998? You will know that Belgium and other imperialist forces murdered Patrice Lumumba, the leader of the now Democratic Republic of Congo, a true revolutionary. They installed later on their puppet, Mobutu Sese Seko. They used DRC for looting purposes, to loot its minerals. And Mobutu Sese Seko was their puppet, assisting the imperialists to loot the minerals in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But of course, as we all know, that imperialists do not love us. They love our resources. So you can be a puppet for 30 years or for all you like, but when the time comes for you to go, the imperialists, they will not defend you. They will not protect you. They will look for someone that they can use as a puppet to continue looting the resources, because this is what imperialists do. They are driven by their economic interests. They are not driven by human right love or a violation of human rights abuse, that they were condemning human rights abuse. They are not driven that some countries rig elections, therefore they want democracy to prevail in countries across the globe. That's not what drives the imperialists. They are driven by economic interests, hence the change of governments, hence the installing of puppets across the world. So when the time for Mobutu Sese Seko came to go, that was in 1997, the imperialists abandoned him. He died a painful death, we all know. In came Laurent Desire Kabila, who was leading the movement, a liberation movement. When Laurent Kabila became president, he began to negotiate the mining rights in the Democratic Republic of Congo. You will know that under Mobutu, the country today we call Democratic Republic of Congo was called Zaire. So when Mobutu, when a former president, the late Kabila, began to negotiate for the people of Congo to have a share in the minerals or in the wealth of their own country, he crossed the line of the imperialist and he had to go because he was now interfering with the economic interest of the imperialist forces. What did they do? The United States of America and the others used the Uganda and the Rwanda as proxies to invade the Democratic Republic of Congo, to fight the late President Laurent Kabila. But of course, we know again that there's no democracy in Rwanda or in Uganda, but those are not under sanctions, which then clearly demonstrate that sanctions are not based on the rigging of elections. They are not based on the continuously arresting of the opposition leaders. If sanctions were based on the human rights abuses of citizens and the opposition, His Majesty King Mswati in Swaziland will be under sanctions by now. But he's not, because he does not interfere with the economic interests of the imperialists in his own country. So when a former president, Laurent Kabila, then he negotiated the mining rights in his own country, DRC, for the benefit of the people of Congo, he had to go. Rwanda, Uganda were used as proxies. When that happened, the late former president of Zimbabwe, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, went on the side of Laurent Kabila to stop Rwanda and Uganda in toppling Laurent Desire Kabila. This is where sanctions began. Robert Mugabe, when he was loved by the imperialists, when a red carpet was rolled out for him during the genocide which happened in Matabeleland from 1983 to 1987, no sanctions were imposed against him. Reports are saying over 20,000 people of Matabeleland and Midlands died during the genocide. But Mugabe remained the darling of the West. When a chaotic land reform happened, war veterans in 2000, after the referendum, invaded commercial farms. 2001, we saw Zidera being introduced, and the sanctions are still in place. So Robert Mugabe crossed the line of the imperialists by supporting Laurent Kabila against the proxies, Uganda and Rwanda. These are the roots of the sanctions. So if we were to discuss sanctions, as I said that we are not recording a long video, we must locate the sanctions from the Congo War, the involvement of Zimbabwe in the Congo War, not the rigging of elections, not the human rights abuses in Zimbabwe, because human rights abuses are happening all over the continent. And a very few leaders or countries are under sanctions. Again, we are told that because Zimbabwe failed to implement the Economic Structure Adjustment Program, which was introduced in 1991, again became Economic Structure Adjustment Program Phase 2 in 1996. Zimbabwe missed targets, budgetary constraints, and so forth. Therefore, sanctions were to be imposed. That's not correct. In any case, the collapse of the Zimbabwean economy must be located in the introduction of the neoliberal agenda as advanced by the late Minister of Finance who introduced the Economic Structure Adjustment Program, Bernard Chitsero. You will know that in the first decade of our majority rule, we continued with what is called a planned economy, Just to remind you, as we're drawing to conclusion, that during Rhodesian days, when Rhodesia was under sanctions, they learned from Britain. You will know that Britain during the Second World War introduced the planned economy, placed a number of companies under state control for it to fight the Second World War. So when Rhodesians were then placed under sanctions during the struggle for national liberation, they placed the companies under state control in what today we call parastatals. These parastatals were run by professional individuals. What was problematic with the Rhodesian economy is that it excluded the majority of the black people. It was built along racial lines. This is why we opposed the Rhodesian economy. But when we gained the majority rule in 1980, we continued with the planned economy for the next decade until government was advised to adopt neoliberal agenda, which caused massive unemployment in our country, which led to the closure of industries in our country. So the problems in Zimbabwe, the economic problems, are based in the main by the introduction of the Economic Structure Adjustment Program, the neoliberal agenda, which the current Minister of Finance, Professor Mthuli Ncube, also is pursuing. And we have always told him that the neoliberal agenda will not assist in the rebuilding of the Zimbabwean economy. The second issue that has contributed to the collapse of the Zimbabwean economy is corruption. Every day we see the political leadership flouting wealth in public. Expensive vehicles land in Harare every day for the political elite and their families. Nepotism. Our parastatals collapsed because of nepotism, unqualified people employed. Secondly, our parastatals have been used for corrupt purposes. This has led to the destruction of our economy. This is why, as the Zimbabwe Communist Party, we call for the rebuilding of our economy, what we call the national democratic economy. Building of the national democratic economy based on national planning linked to devolution of power to the people. At this stage, even if the Zimbabwe Communist Party were to come into power, we have explained in our party program, as adopted at the Zimbabwe Communist Party First Congress in Bulawayo, December 2019, that conditions do not allow us to transit to socialism. We need to build blocks towards socialism. And we have identified the building of the national democratic economy as a first step towards transition to socialism. Because we can't transit to socialism now, because the working class and the peasantry at the moment do not understand. We need to raise their class consciousness. You cannot command socialism. We must transit. It must be led by the working class. It cannot be led by the elites. Transition to socialism cannot be led by political elites. It must be led by working class and the peasantry. So the task of the Zimbabwe Communist Party, as we conclude now, is to raise the class consciousness of the citizenry in Zimbabwe. We build a national democratic economy. Once we have restored our factories, our industries, we organize every worker into a trade union, progressive trade unions. We organize peasantry into progressive rural organizations. We organize women into progressive women organizations. We organize young people into progressive youth organizations. We raise their class consciousness. Once that is done, it is then at that point that we can transit to socialism. So we said it's a Red Sunday today, the 31st of October, 2021. We thought it was important that we have this discussion briefly. We will again every Sunday try to have the political discussion affecting the people of Zimbabwe internationally on what is happening internationally as part of our political education. Otherwise, please subscribe, like the video. I am Ngabuto Nicholas Mabena, General Secretary of the Zimbabwe Communist Party. Thank you for your participation.